I think the saying is the best camera is the one that you have with you. But you can really use that saying for anything. The best computer is the one that you have with you. The best MP3 player is the one that you have with you. The best game console is the one that you have with you. Phones really are amazing, but they're missing some of history's best games. Games that if you're watching this channel, you've probably played time and time again on many different devices. I don't really have as much contempt for mobile games as some other people on the internet do. I actually think there's plenty of great games that are made for touchscreens. But sometimes, I just want to play my Marios and my Pokemons in the most convenient way possible. I can feel the rolls of the eyes of every Android user out there. I know, I used to be one of you. I got an Android phone specifically for the emulators back in the day. Just a few short weeks ago, Apple explicitly wrote into their terms of service that emulation apps are suddenly allowed in the iOS App Store. This is monumental for emulation. Finally, it's being recognized as a legitimate service, not just a means of piracy, but as a means to bring the software that we own into the 21st century. But with this declaration, immediately came a bunch of apps flooding the App Store, riddled with ads and privacy concerns, trying to capitalize on the hype. I abstained for a little bit. I know from the Google Play Store that there are a ton of malicious emulators out there. It's best to just wait a little bit for some of these emulators to be vetted. Use an emulator that you've heard of before. So last week, Delta finally made its way over to the iOS App Store officially. Delta is an emulator that's been on iPhones for years. It just required the Alt Store, which requires a little bit of tomfoolery to get running good on your iPhone. Now, you can just download Delta straight to your phone, completely for free. Again, monumental for emulation. It's been interesting seeing everybody using it. It's easy to forget the cultural impact Apple has. Hundreds of thousands of people are hearing about Pokemon on the iPhone and downloading their very first emulators. This is not my first emulator, so I'm looking at this with a critical lens. And every critique that I've had so far has been addressed through a little bit of tinkering and digging around. The best console really is the one that you have with you. This video is sponsored by Surfshark.
Hey, thanks for the sub, boing. Hey,
God, I hate watching Twitch.
Hey, what's this?
Well, I don't know. I've never been able to read.
Oh yeah, you're a dog. Well, look right here.
I'm still a dog.
Right. It says somebody in this household was caught downloading ROMs. Was that you?
Oh, not me. It could have been anybody.
Well, that's interesting because here it says that they were caught downloading Nintendogs, Chihuahua, and Friends. That sounds like a you thing.
A me thing? Is that a stereotype?
Yeah, I did. Yeah,
Are you stereotyping me right now?
I'm sorry.
I can't believe this.
VPNs can help change your location so that you can access content that might otherwise be blocked in your country. They can also help you encrypt your data so that nobody in your network can see what you're doing, not even your ISP. So you have the freedom to do whatever you want on the internet. Surfshark One gets you their VPN, private web search, data leak alerts, and their antivirus. There's no risk to trying Surfshark because they offer a free 30-day money-back guarantee. So if you want to give it a try, click the link in the description below and use code DEN, that's D-E-N, for a whole 3 months for free.
Oh yeah, baby.
Aha! I knew it!
It's not what it looks like. It's not mine. My brother took my controller. My dog ate my homework. Okay, could you just give me like 10 more minutes?
You're disgusting. Hey. In a previous video, I talked about using Afterplay on the iPhone. It's another way to get emulators on your iPhone without jailbreaking. This method uses the web browser on your iPhone, which was the only way you could do this at the time. And honestly, it was also pretty awesome. There's a lot about Afterplay that I like. I love how it's cloud-based, for instance. I love the settings and options that it has. It's very versatile. It has a bunch of systems that it can run, but some of the 3D ones cost money to use. So Afterplay is still an option. It does support more consoles than Delta does, but Delta is free and it does support enough consoles. It supports pretty much all Nintendo systems from NES all the way up to DS. So that's Game Boy, Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance, NES, SNES, N64, and DS. Those are usually the ones that I focus on the most, so it's good to see them there, but it would be nice to eventually have Genesis and arcades and stuff, which are available on the Alt Store version. Everybody wants to see GameCube on the iPhone, and it turns out that it's unlikely we'll be seeing GameCube or the Dolphin emulator on the iPhone anytime soon. According to Oatmeal Dome, GameCube emulation requires just-in-time data recompiling, which is a way to translate GameCube's architecture to the modern Apple architecture. This is something that Apple does not currently allow all App Store developers to use. They had to submit a request, and that request was denied. I don't know much about developing an emulator, but these iPhones have gotten pretty damn powerful, and I would imagine it'll take some time, but eventually someone will figure out a workaround, a way that will translate the PowerPC architecture over to this new ARM architecture in a way that is more power intensive, but that could get the job done. That'll probably take a really long time. It's not going to be as easy as just taking the Alt Store version of Dolphin and putting it on the iPhone. Anyway, once you download Delta off the App Store, you're greeted with an empty page. You need to add the games. The only way to do this is to get your ROMs onto the Files app on your iPhone. The iPhone sucks at managing files. This is my least favorite part of the process, but it's not that bad. You can download all of your ROMs one at a time through Dropbox, or you can airdrop them if you have an Apple computer. Or you can directly connect your phone to a Windows computer, but that process sucks, so probably don't do that. I save all my ROMs in the Downloads folder on my iPhone, then head over to Delta, and press that little plus button in the top right corner there, and you just add the files you just put on your iPhone. You can batch add, which is a nice touch. There is also an option in the settings to sync all of your Delta data with Dropbox. This is great if you have multiple devices, or just want to back up your settings. But it would be better if this Dropbox folder that it creates was a little more useful. This sync just creates a copy of all of your ROMs and save files and themes, and encrypts them into these files that can only be used by Delta. I would love to be able to just drag my ROMs and other files into my Dropbox folder on my desktop and have them just appear in Delta synced and everything. One of my favorite things about Afterplay is that it's cloud-based, and this would be sort of cloud-based. It would just be much easier to manage my ROMs that way. I won't have to deal with the iPhone's file app. If you're watching this and you're wondering where to get your ROMs from, you shouldn't have to ask. Also, there is actually some pretty remarkably easy ways to obtain ROMs completely legally, and I have some videos on that. It's a fun process to do. You can even pull save files from your own Pokemon cartridges. DS is the hardest to pull from, but it's still pretty easy if you have a 2DS or a 3DS laying around. The only system on here that requires some extra steps is DS. You need to go into Delta's settings and add BIOS files for the DS. I actually have no idea how to legally obtain BIOS files, but luckily they're just sitting right there on Google. It's like the first link and it gives you all the files you need. Then once you put those into Delta, you're ready to just open any ROM and have it running on your phone with glorious, wonderful touch controls. Touch controls. Touch controls are far from ideal, but they're honestly fine for turn-based RPGs. That's why this is so popular with Pokemon games. Every system within Delta has on-screen controls that are all pretty decently laid out, and they can all be updated using custom skins downloaded from the internet. You can find some at delta-skins.github.io, and you can install them the same way you would a ROM file. Then in the settings, you click on the skin for the specific system you want to change, and you swap right on that skin. This confused me for a second when I was trying to figure this out. I find switching the skin is useful for certain games, but for the most part, the default themes look and feel good enough for most games. I do like having the option to use a thumbstick instead of a D-pad, because sliding your thumb around on a touchscreen is easier than feeling for a D-pad that's not actually there. I also like the option to have a full screen sideways DS for Rhythm Heaven, which is probably the best use case I've found for Delta in general. It's a touchscreen game, so it's perfect on the iPhone. Why haven't they made a Rhythm Heaven game on the iPhone? But either there's a bit of lag or I'm just really bad. And as a former drummer, I refuse to believe that I'm this bad. What? Come on. The touchscreen controls are the best that they can be. The tactile feedback from the vibration motor in this phone actually does a really good job making it feel like a button is being pressed. But it's not a good enough replacement for being able to feel the button under your finger before you press down. Also, capacitive touchscreens like this don't really allow for more than 2 inputs at once. So if you're playing Mario, you can't hold right, run, and jump at the same time. However, my mortal enemy Willow Davis let me know that he plays Mario by using Delta's settings to force hold a button down, which is very easy to do in the quick menu. So you can have Delta hold down the run button for you. A broken clock is right some of the time. But if you absolutely cannot use touch controls for whatever reason, that's fine too. Delta supports virtually every type of controller that works with the iPhone. That includes PlayStation, Xbox, and even Switch controllers. And Delta kind of just gives you the perfect button mapping right out of the gate. Start and select is to bring up the Delta quick menu if you couldn't figure that out on your own. I did notice a weird bug though, where sometimes if you press the start and select button to bring up the quick menu, from that point forward, the start button brings up the quick menu. It doesn't actually press pause in the game, so sometimes you have to reset. That's a little weird bug that I hope they fix in the future. I have an iPhone 15, so I can use any USB-C controller like this Backbone one, or the Kishi that I have. I do like the Backbone PlayStation controller because it works with the official PlayStation Remote Play app as well.
What's the start button? R2 is the start button? Okay. Remember when I said everything just works? Maybe not. Luckily, you can customize controls because Y is start and select X and Y. That's weird.
But if that doesn't interest you at all, the Kishi has nicer, clickier buttons. But what I hate about both of these is that they require me to take the case off of my iPhone. So I kind of never want to use them. Also, having to carry around a bulky controller like this kind of defeats the minimalism of just having your phone with you. Luckily, the 8BitDo 02 and the Micro both work on the iPhone. These are the tiniest controllers you can get. It kind of sucks not being able to prop your phone up to use it. I sometimes have this Ugreen MagSafe charger in my backpack that has a kickstand in it. I'm going to have Amazon affiliate links for all of the stuff that I talk about in this video in the description below, including this cheap MagSafe case that I have because I know people are going to ask about it. I actually got this case because my mom had it and I liked it, and then I bought it. Thanks, Mom. I like to create very complicated solutions for very minor inconveniences, so I 3D printed a couple of MagSafe adapters for these really tiny controllers. This is kind of a kit bash of 2 other projects I've previously worked on. You can actually just straight up buy MagSafe plates off of Amazon that you can just attach to whatever you want. I've used it previously to snap an ND filter onto the back of my phone. And now I'm using it to snap a little 8BitDo micro holder. It also works for the 02. They're like virtually the same size. It's a bit wobbly. It's a lot wobbly vertically. But I also made a slotted version that doesn't use MagSafe at all. That one might work a little better for most games.
Oh, well, that's not good.
The files for these are also in the description. I was gonna put them on some website so that you guys can get them printed for yourself if you wanted to, but they're extremely janky. I don't recommend spending money on them. Since this iPhone is USB-C, I can also just plug the iPhone into the Steam Deck dock or any USB-C dock except for the Switch dock for some reason. And I can play emulators on my TV from my couch using a Bluetooth controller. And you can connect up to 4 controllers with Delta. People always ask me for a cheap plug-and-play emulation solution for a TV. This is probably the best you're gonna get. A couple more rapid-fire tips for using Delta. If you leave your phone on silent mode like I do, you're gonna wanna turn that off before you open Delta so that you can have sound in your games. There is an option within Delta to ignore silent mode, but I don't want Delta to do that. I don't need a crowded room to know that I'm playing New Super Mario Bros. Beans. You can turn off your rotation lock and switch to portrait mode, and the controller overlay will change. This is sometimes better. Swiping up to close and back to your home screen is come on. There we go.
It's easier if you just go home and then you can do whatever you want with it.
And finally, save files. I was about to give Delta a big fat L for not letting me edit or manage or maintain my save files. I wanted to put my Mario RPG save on here because that's the most convenient way that I'm going to be able to get through that game. Well, it actually does let you import or export your save files, but it's just a little bit hidden. You have to hold down on the game that you want to manage and select import save file. That's it. It's that easy. A little tip for you Pokemon fans, you can export your save file from Delta, put it on your computer, and then use a program like PokeHex to edit your save file. You can put whatever Pokemon you want into your party. You can get all shinies if you want. You can edit the stats of your Pokemon. Then you can export that save file, put it right back into Delta. Just don't do that if you live in Japan, because you will go straight to jail. I've actually never played Mario RPG until this past year. I got it for the Switch, and I really did not like the Switch version. It felt like an older game with just some filter over the whole thing. And I felt like I would have liked the older one. So I think it was Holy Lettuce over on my Twitch. Followed my Twitch stream and played the whole SNES game. Did exactly what I did, and then gave me the save file. So that's the one that I'm playing now. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Personally, I don't see this completely replacing some of my other emulation options. I still love my Mii Mini Original because of how small it is. I like having physical buttons. And if I'm gonna need to bring an accessory with me to play games on my phone, I might as well bring the Mii Mini. It takes up the same amount of space, if not less space than a controller would. If you can't get your hands on a Mii Mini, there's also the GKD Pixel, which I've heard has gotten a lot better with recent software updates. But I do see myself using Delta a lot. I love Rhythm Heaven on here, even if I do need some practice with it. But more than that, it'll help me get through Mario RPG finally, because it will always be with me. This is huge for us emulation fans, because now we have all of our games and saves with us everywhere. But it also lowers the barrier to entry drastically. You don't need to buy anything additional, you can just put it on your phone. You can now even text your friends the ROM file for Super Mario World, but Mario has a gun. And they can enjoy something they never would have otherwise. So what do you guys think about the Delta emulator? What have you been playing on there? Is there anything that you would have liked to have seen done differently with the Delta emulator? Leave it in the comments below. Add me on Twitter, any and all of this other social media garbage. Thank you Surfshark for helping sponsor this video. You know if you need that. I stream over on twitch.tv/Wulff all of the time. Go over there, hang out, and we can talk about the videos that I'm making in the future, and you can help me out with those. But of course, the most important thing that you can do to help support this channel is just subscribe and share this video with a friend who desperately needs to get into emulation, because this might be the easiest way to do it. Thank you very much. Have yourself a good week.